So, welcome back. I tried to do some things with my lower control arm mounts for the coilovers, and it didn't exactly work. It's cast lower control arms, and I am not a cast iron welder. So anyways, I tried. It ended up cracking. I did not heat the metal. I know you're supposed to preheat it and do some other things. But, so yeah, this is the way it looked originally. I should have probably just got the Mark 8 lower control arms because it doesn't have that in it anyways. But whenever I originally got this cradle with the independent suspension, because it's for a Thunderbird, it had those lower control arms on it, and I'm just trying to make it work without having to spend extra money. So I ended up pulling the lower control arm off, and I decided I went and got some 3/16 steel. Well, here's my original attempt. So I think it looks kind of cool. It was a lower control arm mount. I mean, I had to go back over the welds a couple times because I noticed some cracking, and I thought maybe something was going on, but right there, really small, there's a crack. So I cut it off, and this is what I did. So I just got some 6-inch round 3/16 plate. I'm drilling holes now because I'm going to do it like this. Just made it completely flat, and I am going to drill the holes so that I can just put 1/2-inch bolts in here. I'll have 4 different bolts, and on the top of it I will go ahead and weld another version of this, but I'm going to make them bigger. I just have some stock here, and see if I can't get this lower control arm coilover mount to be the way I want it to be. I've already did the uppers, on the passenger side because I thought I was good. So this is the way I have it. I ended up matching this tubing to this tubing. I bent my own tube. I coped this, added some bracing support there, made this little upper mount here. I think it looks kind of cool. It's going to be interesting because of my roll cage and where that's at whenever I make my wheelhouse. But I think it's going to be okay. So there it is. And then this side I already mocked it up. Nothing is welded, nothing's even tagged, it's just sitting there. So I'll add some more tubing up here and make some more mounts for this side for the coilover. Once I get my lower control arm figured out, and we will go from there, see if it works. I really think the plate idea will. Might not be my preferred method, but I cannot find any tubular lower control arms. So if anybody knows of some for a Thunderbird or a Mark 8 rear end, that would be great. I would love to try them. Maybe get some more adjustments, because as of right now, I have my toe compensator, and then I have my camber bolt. And I mean, I have a lot of adjustment, but I just don't like these huge, bulky lower control arms. But I'm using what I have, and if it doesn't work, I'll change it at some other point. So everything's clamped into place. I'm going to put one hole here, and I'm just going to bolt it down so it's extra secure whenever I'm drilling the other holes. I don't want anything to shift. But like I said, I have a plate on the top and the bottom. This particular plate I ended up cutting to fit more flush instead of being at an angle or have any humps or anything like that. So let's get to it. Alright, got a longer bolt. Hopefully this will work this time. I mean, it's not perfection here, it's just making it snug. Yeah, so it shouldn't spin, I don't think. I don't know. Still looks good. I know I've been terrible at recording. It's just because I've been busy, but let me show you some progress that I have made in the last week or two. So I ended up making these lower mounts down here, cutting off the whole round, whatever you want to call it, and I put 3/16 plate on the top, 3/16 on the bottom, cut it out so it's really flush, and drilled 1/2-inch holes. I ended up welding on this bracket right here, made this bracket right here, ended up matching the tubing to make that shock coilover tower, whatever you want to call it. Coat this little tube, coat that tube, and this is what I've just done today. So I matched it on this side. I guess you can see what I've done a little bit easier because I didn't paint it yet. The paint is just temporarily, just so it doesn't rust on me. But you can kind of see bracket a little bit more. Coping, tubing, mount. Okay, so I know this is a little strange, but I have control arms everywhere, so it's four-wheel alignment. Can't exactly just drive the car to a shop to get an alignment, so before I make my wheel flares, I wanted to have a good idea that the alignment was somewhat correct when it comes to track width. I wanted the center of my wheel wells to be centered. So this is what I did. I put some 1x1 tubing on the center lines because making them long and vertical like that, plus I already had it, but making them stand really tall like that, it's easier to see what my differences are, and I get it, it's not perfect, but as you can see, it's right in the center of the wheel. I measured it out, put some tape on the ground, measured side to side. Not too worried with camber right now. I'm somewhere between 1.5 and 2.5 all the way around. I just wanted my caster essentially to be correct. My toe is a little off too, but I'm not worried about that. Like I said, I just wanted it centered. So what I ended up doing was I said, all right, well, center line for each quarter, so that whenever I cut them up more and I start mocking up my wheel flares to be center in the quarter. Because when I originally cut these quarters out, I just did a rough cut. So as you can see, there's really nothing there that's stabilizing it. It moves a lot. So that's what I wanted to do. And whenever I hang the fenders again, I'll probably end up having to do this again. But I'll probably just leave the tape on the ground and make it a little bit easier. Right now, I'm less than 1/2 inch side-to-side difference with wheelbase. So I know it's pretty close. I think it's close enough because I mean, there's obviously has to be play for the tire travel anyway. So the flares and stuff are not going to be super close. Right now I'm trying to find a different wheel selection because these are plus 43. It's a 62-inch track width in the rear, and it is nearly flush. I want this thing to stick out pretty far. I want to get this 3 inches wider on each side, even the front, for whenever I do the wide body. So that's where I'm at. So I figured out my wheelbase earlier, pretty close to it at least, but I also kind of wanted to figure out the rear toe just to make sure, kind of double check its center. So I know this is kind of silly, but back in the day they did used to pull string. This is actually just fishing line because that's all I had, but they used to do this to be able to adjust toe because why not? It's really easy. You just match up the solid axle in the rear, pull it forward, and you know. Well, obviously it's a four-wheel alignment, so it does make things a little bit more difficult. But I noticed that the front of the tire was sticking out more, so I ended up just barely touching it, just a tiny bit away from it maybe, and then I adjusted it. So for the lower control arm, you have your toe adjustments, and then you have the toe compensator in the front as well. And I just did a little adjustment, and right now it looks like it's about maybe 1/8 of an inch on the rear away. So the front is, it's still a little bit toe off, but it's really close. So it really allows me to get a good center line on this wheelhouse back here. And I know for a fact the toe is off in the front, but I have it towed in on purpose. Plus the track width is not quite as wide on the front. So I'm not sure if I'll get offset wheels or staggered tires, or if I'll end up just putting spacers up front. But yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna be okay. It's towed in up front, and I got the back pretty solid. So I don't know, just I don't know, I like to double check and triple check different angles and stuff to make sure everything's on point. So hopefully this works out. Okay, so it's been a couple weeks. I haven't really recorded that much because I've had a whole lot of design kind of issues, trying to figure out what I want to do, how I want to do it, what's the material I'm going to use. So this is what I've come to conclude. I like it. I'm in the process of making wheel wells so that I can make a wide body kit. I needed to have enough upward travel on my rear suspension. So this is what I'm doing. So I did order some new wheels. I don't have the wheels yet. But what I did do is I have 3 inches of spacers, and you can really see the difference. It's extremely wide. I'm changing the track width up front as well, so it would be very similar. So currently I made these wheel wells, and looks pretty clean, but it was just basically from that. I cut off both edges, probably end up reusing the edges whenever I actually make the wide body. But as of right now, I've got things mocked up. I got my coilovers, got the big brake kit from the Cobra rear end, so it looks pretty cool, you know, right? I didn't put the caliper on this side yet. You can see the rotor a little bit better. You can see how everything's cut out. What I ended up doing was saying, hey, you know what, I want some upward travel. I'm not sure exactly how much. Did some research. Obviously, it depends on the driving and stuff like that, but I have come to conclude that I want 3 1/4 inches before I bottom out. So I basically took this like protractor and scribed all the way around with just a little cap here to kind of keep it somewhat even. Right, as of right now, it's only at 3 inches. I can fine tune that last 1/4 inch. I will get to cutting on this one, but I do want to see the front mocked up. I'm thinking I'm going to go ahead and cut one of the fenders open and put the spacers up front as well, because I'm getting some wheels custom made, and it's going to take a while, so I don't want to hold up the process. I want to go ahead and put the spacers up front and see what the track width's looking like and what kind of clearance issues I'm going to have. The fenders are literally just sitting here. I have like one bowl on each side and just some rubber kind of spacers sitting there so that I can get my height right. It's close, you know, it's close, but she's looking good, I think. You know, I'm excited about it. Okay, so I have to throw this out there real quick. I was looking at it. My front is going to be 3 inches wider. As you can see right now, there is no room for that tire to come out. And the tire is 3 3/4, about 4 inches up here. So for it to come out, I have to cut approximately this line. And I've decided, screw it. You only live once. I understand that these fenders are not super easy to come by, but I think I can make it work. I call myself a fabricator, and I think even though cutting through that body line, I'm going to be able to figure it out, make it look cool, and I'm going to be happy. Plus, it's going to be one of a kind, right? Super wide Mustang. Let's see if we can do it. So as I was saying before, I have some custom wheels being made with pretty sick offset. So these wheels right now are plus 43, and the offset I have ordered is -20. So it's like, I don't know, 2.5 inches or something like that. I'd have to do the math. I don't recall. I did do the math. I just don't recall. And then the tires I'm planning on running, should be able to run some 295s. Some square 295s. So I should be at like 3.6 inches wider outward. So that's going to make this whole car about 7 inches wider. One thing I will note though is, years ago whenever I did the Mustang 2 front suspension, I opted for the narrow one for whatever reason. And I really wish I would have went with the wider one. I don't remember the wider size, but my front is probably going to end up being a little bit more narrow. I obviously won't use these spacers, but I may still end up getting like longer studs on my, oh, by the way, these rotors are garbage. They're very old. And I ordered some drilled and slotted Granada 11-inch rotors. So that does help my track width a little bit. The Granada is about 1 inch wider. So that will help some. But I still may end up, I have to figure out exactly my track width, and I may end up just running, I don't know, some type of 3/8 or half-inch spacer or something up front to kind of counterbalance that more narrow front end. I mean, some people really like the staggered look, and I'm not against it, but it's not really what I was going for. All right, so let's see how it fits. Yeah, I don't have hardly any. Obviously, I don't have a front clip or nothing, so the issue of locking it up is a little bit harder at the moment. You know, I should lower it though, so that makes sense, right? Wow. Okay. Let me set that back a little bit. Cool. Chasing seconds. Obviously it's not right, but once I lower the suspension, lift them up a little bit, sit on the tire. Like that. Now, I actually think it looks kind of cool. It's not going to be the right width or nothing like that at the moment. It'll probably be in some more. I'm just guessing on the gap up there. I don't know. I do have the old grill and stuff. I need to bolt in and mock up for the width of the fenders, but man, that looks a lot nicer. So front to rear. Obviously, when I cut the quarter away, it took all the flare off, and the front didn't have nearly as much. So it's one reason why the rear is sticking out way more. Plus, like I said, the track width is wider on the rear. But you can definitely see the difference. I mean, it looks really cool with the fender hugging it. Like if it was on bags or something, it would work. But I wanted it wider anyway. So that's before. That's after. So yeah, I don't know, maybe 1 inch wider in the rear on both sides or something like that. But I think that looks pretty cool, especially once I actually get the right wheels on it. I've already got the passenger side kind of mocked up. This is how it looks over here on this side. This whole piece was already actually on the car. I just cut the complete thing off, cleaned it up, cut it down. It was a lot taller. I wanted to make my whole upward travel a lot higher. So right now I have about 3 1/4 inches upward travel. That's how I have that side mocked up. This side I've just started doing the same thing. I just kind of have it clamped into place, and that little piece right here just have some self-tapping screws, just kind of holding it. And now I'm fitting it to the outside. As you can see, there's a lot of gap issues and stuff. So I'm trimming, fitting, trying to figure out how to make it work. This side looks okay, but it's just that I'm making a wheel well. And then I'm gonna end up making another flare on the outside. This side is just tacked on, but the fitment's a whole lot better over here. Looks pretty clean, pretty cool, pretty decent. And it's actually, I know it looks a lot more than 3 inches because it has the other tire off and it's not sitting on the ground completely, so this side's still a bit higher. If you put the other tire back on, you'll see that there's only about 3¼ inches of upward travel. My suspension is highly adjustable, so I mean I could go up or down in height, which I don't really want to because my lower control arms are where they want to be, where I want them to be, and I can also adjust the compression and rebound, so it should help. But yeah, I have a lot more fitment to do here. You can see the big space in that area, which I'm just going to basically push it out and keep trimming it until it fits better, like this side does. And then I'm going to end up continuing to extend it a little bit on the inside here. I'm going to end up bringing the whole wheel well over this way, and then end up coming straight down from the wheel well. Probably roll a bead in this piece of metal that's going to end up going here for the inside. Make it a little bit stronger. Yeah, so let's get to it. So that's what I was saying. Like 3¼ 3 3/8 on both sides, something like that. Once the suspension settles, it's probably more 3¼ instead of 3 1/8. But you can see I have a lot of upward travel. And this is with the suspension completely loosened up. There's nothing. All my adjustment knobs are completely turned down, so I'll have way more compression. This is literally just the weight of the car sitting on the springs. But I did want to show something else. I don't know if I brought this up before, but I did order new wheels. I haven't got here yet, so I have some spacers on here trying to duplicate the actual width of what the car is going to be, which it's similar. It's within ½ of an inch. It should be ½ of an inch wider. The only one I did not change yet was this front driver, but you can really see the difference with the width. It's going to be pretty crazy. I mean, the track width should be about 7 inches wider. This side I already have mocked up. You can see the front and the rear pretty stinking wide. Gives me a lot more room up front, which I really like. Plus, I mean, it's going to handle amazingly, I hope. But I am going to have to get really creative with the wide body kit that I'm going to make. And the reason why is simply because this is how the factory fender looks. So you got the body line right here. And now, this is how it looks. Yeah, there's a big difference there. This is just the way I chose to do it. There's many different ways. This is the way for me. I want to get crazy. I want to do something different. So hopefully it's all going to turn out. But same kind of thing. I'm going to have about 3½ inches, maybe 3 3/4 inches of upward travel in the front, because the track width is so wide right now. I had to, because I couldn't even extend the track width until I cut the fender out, because the tire was hitting, like, it was about this high on the inside, and the fender wouldn't allow it to get any wider. So I had to cut it that high to be able to achieve the width that I wanted. So it's going to be really unique, one of a kind, I'd say. So you can definitely get a good view of the fender differences there. I'm excited about it. So I got the bottom touching here, the bottom touching here. I slid it down just a little bit so I can slide it out. I know it takes a lot longer grinding versus cut-off wheel or something like that, but I'd rather be more precise. I don't want to overcut on accident, so I'm just holding it out, kind of trimming it down to get it to fit the quarter. So I've been doing the inner wheel well and trying to get all that mocked up and tacked together. Looks pretty good. This is where I'm at. So I know it looks like it's tubbed, which it sort of is, but my tire is going to be out, not in. But the reason why I'm doing it this way is because I'm creating a bead rolled piece of sheet metal right there, which is going to allow me to have access to my coilover, because if I cut the wheel well off too soon, it would be inside the trunk, and I don't really want that. But I think it looks pretty cool. It's just completely mocked up right now. This is the trunk hinge. I'm gonna have to trim that and push it back over and re-weld it. But I think it looks pretty cool. End up doing the same thing on the other side, but my dilemma here is I wanted to make this. So I made it out of just regular sheet metal, and this actually is the piece that I'm going to bead roll. I know a lot of people do them lengthwise, but I want to do it this way. Measured them all out. Each one's at a different angle and degree, and just going to do vertical, 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 all the way across it, and see how it goes. It's been a long time since I've done any bead rolling, but I think it'd be pretty cool. Okay, so this is what I was making. So cut a little hole here for the roll cage, cleaned up the metal pet bit on both sides for the roll cage. This is just like the second mock-up here. So basically it's going to go like this. As you can see, it doesn't line up, so I'm going to end up probably cutting a little spot here and opening up the diameter. Okay, so I ended up having to cut the bottom out a little bit more for the roll cage. So got it pretty close. Just going to wait until right there where my thumb is. I can see that's where it starts to get off. I'm going to come over here, mark this section here, do a little cut. Pretty tight fitting it, pretty clean. So I had to make it in multiple pieces so that I could go around the roll cage. But as you can see, that roll cage bar is nowhere near the tire, so, and I'm widening it even further. So like I said, it is kind of funny having more of a tubbed vehicle on an independent rear when it's not really needed, but by putting that bead roll piece of sheet metal right here, it really allows me to have plenty of access on the outside to my my coilover. So I'm digging it so far. So I got the inner portion welded up, somewhat tacked into place. This looks pretty cool. Cut this out of ram board instead of using paper or whatever, just something close. Gives me an idea. I'm gonna, obviously it's too small, but I'm gonna use that for just a kind of a scrap piece of metal. I'll end up making it a lot larger than what this is, and then make some more trimming and modifications so that I can make it work. But yeah, that's the piece that I'm gonna have bead rolled right there. Make it look nice. So as we can see, it's not even close to fitting right now. It's way too tall. But it's sitting there, you know, it's cool. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna hold it from the outside, come on the inside, and trace my line along the rail here, because that's where it's gonna end up being welded to. And so it at least has a good starting point. And once I get that good, then I can come back and trim the top, all this excess mess off, all the way up here. And that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to bead roll this piece. Took took a bunch of measurements on this side, then I realized I wanted the bead to be the opposite direction, so I transferred it to this side. So let's get started. So that's it. I think it turned out pretty good. Still has a little bit of warpage, but that's okay. Look at those beads. They look nice, I think. See the inside of it. It'll look like that. And here it is. So I've actually only got 3 clamps in it, and it's holding it pretty well. I'll have to move that over a little bit whenever I weld it to the rail. But otherwise, I think it looks pretty great. I'm going to plug weld the top and then just roll a continuous bead along the rail. So that's what the inside looks like before any welding. Pretty cool. Like I said before, it's tubbed. I actually already finished this side. Well, not finished, but it's pretty close. You get the idea of how it looks. And yeah. A lot more sheet metal work to do. I've already got the floor mocked up, but I had to remove that while I was doing these. My hinges I kind of trimmed and I just bent out of the way. I'm going to end up folding them back down hopefully and welding them to these tubs. But yeah, I had to make the tubs completely fabricated because there was nothing that would fit there. And one of the reasons why is because you can see the roll cage bar here. Then I have my coilover sitting there, so I still have plenty of access to the bolt on the coilover, but there was no tubs that were for the correct dimensions. I think this turned out pretty cool and it's really clean, and I'm excited to continue.